Hello, I'm Fast Lawyer. Today we are going to do a review for Nuremberg, VRdict of Nations. And I think it would have been better named just Nuremberg Verdict of Nations. Anyways, it was released September 21st, 2021 by developer Rosia Segodnia, and apologies if I mispronounced that. Now, I do want to comment on this developer before I say anything else. Yes, Rosia Segodnia is a government-owned news agency. In English, it would basically translate into Russia Today, and I do think it is wise to have a healthy skepticism of any media produced by a Russian government-owned agency. However, I do believe that in this case, all the information contained herein is backed by historically accurate accounts. Anyways, this is a free-to-play app on the Steam store, and it is available for the Valve Index, HTC Vive, and the Oculus Rift. When it first released, it was only in Russian. However, recently they did add English language support, and I do strongly recommend this app for everyone, especially those interested in history and especially World War II or the rise of Nazis or just fascism in general. And I don't want to get too political, but I do believe these historical accounts really do offer insight into what is currently happening around the world. Anyways, I will put a link in the video description below where you can download this free-to-play app on the Steam store. I do highly recommend this app. I think it is very educational. I think it is historically accurate, and I think there are lessons to be learned here in order to prevent anything like this from ever happening again. Nuremberg VRdict of Nations is running on the Unity engine. On my RTX 3080, I was getting steady 90 frames per second. Other than language though, there are no other settings available for this app. The only locomotion is teleportation, although you do have snap turning available as well. Now you can play this experience either seated or standing, but I do recommend standing just because some items might be difficult to reach, and also I did experience a serious bug that I do want to mention. Now this happened on the Oculus Quest 2 using link cable. I don't know if it happens with any other headsets, but on the Oculus Quest 2 I experienced a bug where my headset would go black in the middle of the experience, and these bugs I think only happen with Rosenberg and von Ribbentrop, and it seemed to happen on the edge of the map where you could teleport. My headset would just turn black for a few moments, maybe like a minute, and then it would go back to normal. I did try to move around to try to get my headset to light back up, and that seemed to maybe make my headset work normally again. It was a strange pause. It happened about 3 or 4 times, but other than that though, I had no other issues or bugs during this experience. I would estimate it took me an hour and 15 minutes to complete this experience. There are 5 different defendants that you collect evidence on for the Nuremberg trial, and all the interactions are basically there's an object highlighted, you go and you pick it up. It's a point and click interaction, and then you write the evidence on your little book that you have. There are some accounts that do have video, but most of them are just either photos or set pieces while the narrator is telling you about what happened during that incident. So you end up finding out about the history of what these defendants did, why they're on trial, and why they deserve the punishments that they got. In fact, I think some of them got off a bit too easy. Overall, I thought this was an excellent presentation. I liked the narration. I liked all the historical facts about these defendants that were on trial, and I think it's an important piece of history to remember. Anyways, I strongly recommend it. Now, I'm not going to give it a score. I just don't think it's appropriate to do so. I just think it's important for everyone to know this history. Anyways, I'm Fast Lawyer. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video as well.
Goering created the Gestapo secret police, a mass terror machine. During its existence, the Gestapo tortured and killed about 25 million people. In 1933, Goering personally took charge of the Prussian police and replaced its senior officers with Nazi supporters. On February 17th, he adopted an executive order on shooting, allowing the police to use weapons against civilians, and mobilized about 30,000 stormtroopers from the Sturmabteilung, the SA, the paramilitary detachments of the Nazi Party. 5 days later, on February 27, 1933, unidentified persons set fire to the Reichstag, the German parliament, The communists were blamed for the fire, and the government introduced the state of emergency. The Gestapo unleashed large-scale terror. Shoot without hesitation whenever necessary. Each policeman must clearly understand that a lack of action is a bigger offense than any mistake committed while fulfilling an order. Every bullet from a police pistol is my bullet. If someone calls it murder, I have committed it. I issued all these orders and I insist on them. I take all responsibility and I am not afraid of it. The country is shaken by massive searches and arrests. Communists are caught, intimidated, and beaten. The first fatalities are reported. The number of people killed by the Gestapo grows every day. Their bodies show traces of cruel torture and beating. In the first 6 weeks, at least 28,000 people are thrown into concentration camps and prisons. The Night of the Long Knives was the name of a secret operation aimed at destroying rivals within the party. The main goal was to eliminate Ernst Röhm, the head of the SA and one of Hitler's oldest supporters. Goering considered Röhm to be a dangerous rival. Together with Himmler, he persuaded the Führer that he had to get rid of Röhm and all SA executives. The Gestapo fabricated the evidence that led to mass arrests on June 30th, 1934. About 200 people lost their lives. This was the end of the struggle for power in the Nazi Party. World War I ended with the Treaty of Versailles, which prohibited Germany from having an air force and limited its arms production. Hermann Goering violated this treaty. Hitler charged him personally with restoring Germany's military might and preparing it for war. In 1937, Goering headed a state corporation that included a number of companies confiscated from Jews. Later, Luftwaffe plants used the labor of death camp prisoners. At the Nuremberg trials, like other Nazi criminals, Goering tried to convince the judges that he had not suspected anything. However, Auschwitz documents proved that Goering knew about the use of slave labor since he was responsible for the 4-year plan. In April 1933, Goering was put in charge of the aviation ministry and started its secret revival. By 1935, Goering's Luftwaffe had about 1,800 aircraft and 20,000 personnel. Goering personally headed the Luftwaffe. He was in charge of the Polish and French campaigns, and he continued the bombing of English cities. Goering occupied numerous positions, had practically unlimited power, and was one of the wealthiest figures in the Third Reich. In 1941, he officially became the Führer's successor, which formally made him the second most powerful person in Germany. Unofficially, he was known as Nazi number 2. Hitler called him a Renaissance man, whereas Himmler dubbed him the Black Market King. By some estimates, half of his enormous collection of over 2,000 items were pieces of art confiscated from the Reich's enemies and delivered from occupied territories. The painting Musician by Jean-Baptiste Pater, also stolen, was one of the most valuable pieces in his collection. It was sold at Sotheby's in New York on January 30th, 2014. Not all pieces of art stolen by Goering were returned. The world of art sustained irreparable damage. On April 23, 1945, Goering presented Hitler with an ultimatum to transfer all power to him. The Führer flew into a fury and ordered his arrest for treason. However, several weeks later, Goering surrendered to the Americans of his own free will. A number of historians believe he didn't just want to save his own life, but also hoped to rule Germany after the war. Goering did not know that the Allies had agreed long before that time that the Nazi criminals must be tried in public. By that moment, Goering's fate had been preordained. Hermann Goering, an ambitious and power-hungry criminal devoid of any moral principles and scruples, a ruthless murderer, Nazi number 2. It's hard to overestimate his role in establishing the Nazi regime, and impossible to count the number of people for whose death he was responsible directly or otherwise. He established one of the world's strongest air fleets in record time and prepared Germany for war. He founded and headed the Gestapo secret police, which destroyed countless lives. Later on, in Nuremberg, he denied everything and was sarcastic and even derisive. He was recognized as the most dangerous defendant at the Nuremberg trials. His prosecutors often lost in intellectual sparring with him, which made it possible to postpone his sentence. In a way, he managed to evade justice. He took a cyanide capsule just hours before his execution.